Thank you very much for listening to me today. Let's move on. Cyber Resilience Centre for the South West. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are before I move on to the topic. It's really nice for those of you that are here from the last topic, because this is also heavily related to academia, research-backed and peer-reviewed. So it does feed on quite nicely to linking industry, public sector from our point of view, and academia together. I'm one of the directors of the South West Cyber Resilience Centre, and there's my face and letters and all that sort of thing. Cyber Resilience Centre. So we're police-led. I'm employed by the police to do this job, and it's all about businesses, small and medium enterprises, small and medium organisations, including the third sector, so non-profits, charities, schools, anyone you can think of that operates in some sort of legal entity. We are Home Office funded, so everything we do is supporting those small businesses with their cyber resilience and their cyber awareness. It's completely free, with it being Home Office funded, so there's no barrier to entry. Any small business, for us it's the South West, but we are part of a national network. So there are cyber resilience centres covering the whole of England and Wales. When someone joins up, they get their free membership, they get a simple cyber action plan. It's 12 weeks worth of support with small 5-minute actions to take to try and secure their business. Very similar to what you heard this morning from Sam and Megan with the Roku. Those are the sorts of steps we need all businesses to be taking. We need them to have an understanding of what good looks like, what's expected, and what that minimum baseline level, cyber essentials, what that is and what that looks like. One of the things we do a bit differently to traditional policing is community. When we engage with businesses, they become a member of our community. That means we will continue to be in touch with them. As many of us will know, cyber doesn't stand still. And as fast as we're progressing on the technical defences, the opposite is happening, and the malicious actors are progressing in the same level of speed. So we've got to keep refreshing our messaging. The advice from the NCSC changes regularly. So having an input on one day is brilliant. It's going to help people make the changes they need to make, and it will be absolutely relevant that day. But we need to make sure we've got that community so we can support you when it changes the following week, and then again the following week. So we always try and provide the latest news as NCSC advice changes. If there's specific news related to the South West, I'm going to move on to who we work with, but we do get threat intelligence. So we do tend to have a good understanding of what's going on in the South West, not for the big players that we hear about on the news, but actually for small businesses, local businesses that are being targeted. They are suffering, they are becoming victims of cybercrime, and we don't hear about it. So we do work very hard to try and get that messaging out so people can see that they do need to take the right steps and it is relevant to them. Finally, we've got CyberPath, which is our student services, another way that we link in with academia. PATH stands for Police and Academia Talent Horizons. We work with universities across the South West to get students on placements with us. They can then get some practical industry experience. They get paid for their time, so instead of pulling pints, they can work on real-world cyber problems at a heavily subsidised rate to support small and medium businesses in and around the South West. Things like vulnerability assessments and security training. It gives them soft skills and industry skills to work with clients, and it means that small businesses get great support. That very much ends at the assessment point of view, so we tell them what's wrong. They then need to go out into the big wide world, and we can help support what services they really need to be looking for, whether that's insurance, whether it's policy planning and policy development, or whether it is technical cyber resilience. We are part of a huge network. So we've got our local cyber protect officers, some of those you met today. So that is Megan, who spoke this morning. We've got the Regional Organised Crime Unit, which is Sam, who spoke this morning. We work with National Cybersecurity Centre. All of our advice we put out comes from the National Cybersecurity Centre. We're heavily involved and managed by national policing. We're part of national initiatives for trying to mitigate cybercrime. We work with academia. Community ambassadors are the small organisations around the South West that are technical in cyber, or they help us in other ways because they're community groups. They work with us. They feed into our threat intelligence cycle. as Sam said this morning, so many people don't report cybercrime. So the data that police have is never going to be perfect. However, when something goes wrong, they do tell their IT providers or their insurance brokers. So we get that intelligence from all of those people to see what is happening in the Southwest. So those messages we put out, that news, isn't just this is what the police thinks, it's this is what we're hearing. This is what the Southwest is looking like at the moment. I've already said who we support, so pretty much any business, but small, specifically small, medium, so micro all the way up to 249 members of staff. Large enterprise, we don't just tell them to go away. One of the things we really want large enterprise to think about is their supply chain. Because their supply chain, whether that's large enterprise or CNI, they have huge numbers of SMEs, and they are probably going to be a significant weakest link in that whole supply chain. So we can work with those organisations not to protect them and provide them the advice. They should be doing way above and beyond what we're recommending, we hope, but also to make sure that we can facilitate getting that messaging out to those suppliers and customers. So that is the introduction to the Cyber Resilience Centre. Topic for today, very much building on the last topic, we've published a paper on shadow AI and how that can impact on small businesses. So, shadow AI, put your hands up if you've used any form of AI today. Quite a lot of hands. What about this week? Most of the hands in the room. We use it all the time. Lots of the time we're using it and we don't even think about it. So what is shadow AI? For a business, it is unauthorized use of any AI tooling. Doesn't mean it has to be someone using ChatGPT when they've been told not to. There are so many things we use AI for all the time. It could be someone wearing a pair of high-tech glasses and they walk into your office thinking nothing of it. They've just got a cool gadget for Christmas. But actually, the cameras are connected to AI. You can ask this what I'm looking at, and it will give you a response. It's going to process that information. It's going to do something with it. Now, as businesses, we need to be really careful around where any data is going. And if people are able to come in and use AI, they've got AI on their phone, they've got AI running most of their digital technology, we need to know as businesses what data is being processed and where it's being processed. And if we don't know what people are doing, we can't do that. So an example is someone using ChatGPT on their phone. They get an email they're not entirely happy with their response to. They go onto ChatGPT, get the free app on your phone, and go, here's the email I've received. This is what I'm planning on saying. Can you tidy it up a bit? That would be shadow AI. No one in the business knows that person has put any data into ChatGPT. ChatGPT is US-based, and the free version, any data you put in will be used to train future models. Potentially, if there's PII in that email, personally identifiable information, or anything that's commercially sensitive, that could then be used to train future models. A month or two later, you could ask ChatGPT a question about that company, and it will know this privileged information. That is a huge data breach if it's commercially sensitive or PII. And the business wouldn't be any the wiser. It wouldn't know about it until something goes seriously quite wrong. Okay, so I've mentioned data leakage, people using it, submitting data, don't know where it goes. Number 2 is compliance. So we've got Data Protection Act 2018, we've got GDPR. We have a legal obligation to protect people's data. How can we be compliant with data protection if we don't know where the data is being stored, processed, or we just don't know the scope of data? If we're looking for a tunnel vision at this one little box of this is the data that we store on our servers, and we don't look at anything outside of that box, then there's a huge question mark on compliance. Number 3, biases. Different AI models, different LLMs, will have different biases in different ways. You might know this because if you asked, I can't say it does it today, but when I last did this, if you ask Grok who the best AI influencer is, funnily enough, it says Elon Musk. And if you ask ChatGPT, it says Sam Altman. there might be a little bit of bias in these platforms. So if we're using different platforms and your marketing teams, different people are using different things, our corporate brand, our corporate image is being completely skewed by which tool you decided to use. And also how the users have trained it. If you work with a chat and you talk to it a lot, then you're training it how you want it to behave. If everyone's going off and doing their own thing, everyone's putting their own biases and exaggerating those, so then you've got a marketing team of a disconnected messaging, which could be bad for reputational damage. You've then got business continuity. Oops. What happens if it all turns off? If people are relying on their own AI tools and the company doesn't even know what those AI tools are, when that person leaves, how are you going to train up the next person to be able to do their job? If you don't know what tools are required to do that job, it can pose a real problem. So, I've got a great solution. No AI. That was mentioned earlier, of tightening the grip. So, if you completely ban it, this is what we have. So you've got the work computer, it's a bit blurry, you've got the work computer in the background and someone's phone propped up. The public sector is notorious for this. If there's any question marks, ban it. We can't do it at all. So what people are going to do is they're going to pull out their phone and they're going to start asking some questions. At least when it was on the computer, the IT department can see that they're going on ChatGPT. And when they say, I'm not going to do ChatGPT, I'm going to do DeepSeek, we can then flag that up and say, right, we probably need to do some training here because it was bad when you were using ChatGPT on your own, now you're using DeepSeek. So, this is not a solution. A blanket ban completely stifles innovation because we know that AI is really, really useful for our jobs. There's a reason so many people put their hand up at the beginning of this talk. It's because it adds value to what you do. And as a business, that's absolutely what you want to try and get. You want to get the most return on investment out of your staff and out of anything you're putting effort into. So if AI can help with that, that's brilliant. What do we need to do then if we can't just ban it? We need to work out what people are doing. So it's a case of identifying what tools people use, what tools they know they use. That's when people use ChatGPT on their phone. They know they're doing it. They downloaded the app. If you have a amnesty where if people are doing the wrong thing as a transformation, we're going to move over to the right thing, there'll be no punishment for saying what you use because we just want to know what you're doing. And that can then be the start of that audit. Find out what people are doing. The second one is just as important. You might have people that come to a talk that I've given and they're scared of using technologies, but they found it advertised and they think it's really, really good. We need to be understanding what people want to be using. It might be that it's cost prohibitive. It might be that they just haven't pressed the button and downloaded it. But if there's something that's worth trying, it's worth exploring and raising. But we need to make sure we do that in the right way. And finally is the due diligence. So due diligence, making sure any tools that we do authorise have gone through a process. It's not just a case of saying, I want to use that, and go, oh, okay, off you go then. Because that might be designed by a foreign nation designed to try and siphon data out of your business. So you can't just blanketly let people do whatever they want to do, but we need to know what they want to do to be able to make those informed decisions. Data protection impact assessments. Does anyone in this room or their company have an AI data protection impact assessment that they know of? One. Oh, a few hands. Brilliant. So that is about understanding the impact for data protection of the AI tools you're using. So if you're saying we're happy for you to use Microsoft Copilot because we've turned it on in our Microsoft 365 tenant, we've done the due diligence, we know where the data's going, we know that it is going overseas to a certain extent, but we know at which point it's encrypted, we know at which point it's going to be used for training or not used for training. We're understanding where what data we're allowing people to put in, so policy barriers rather than technical barriers, and we are now happy that we've minimized the impact of this risk. So please use Copilot for X, Y, and Z. That is a perfectly reasonable data protection impact assessment. And you could have 100 tools that you authorise. Large companies, we could have more than that. But we need to go through the process of making sure that that due diligence is done properly and it's recorded so people can see, A, what they can and can't use, and B, why they can't use some things, because some things there are really good reasons to just have a blanket ban on. But if people want to use it and they're told no, it's very much around that support and training of explaining why it's a no, rather than just saying, you can't do that because I said so. How do we classify use of AI? This is really difficult in organisations, but we've created a quadrant that allows us to pinpoint anywhere on there. It's not a case of having to be in one of the boxes of different types of shadow AI. So we've got the impact. So the impact, which is up and down, that is how bad it would be if this use case was put onto the front page of Google. So high impact might be your legal team using it to write up contracts for a confidential merger and acquisition. Because if that was done on a free ChatGPT license and the next day the next one comes out and then someone says, who's doing M&A this week? And it goes, this company is buying that company. That would be insider trading at best. Worst, it could be huge. So we want to see what the impact of the use case is. Then we've got the visibility. When I'm talking about visibility, how much do we know what people are doing? So you may not have a policy for AI, but you might know that your marketing team, they all use Canva. And they all use Canva AI to remove backgrounds. And they all have iPhones, so they use iPhones to store all the work, photos, and then they can quickly search for something because that uses AI to monitor where their photos are. It might not be written in policy, but it might be the status quo. So that would be high visibility. We know they're doing it. The low visibility is the CEO using Grammarly on their computer, which is reading every single email they receive, and no one knows they've got it. Or using a strange, weird and wonderful niche AI tool that no one's ever heard of because it was offered free of charge for 6 months for CEOs. And that tool is for trying to make them appear more productive. They respond to emails straight away. You send them an email, they get it back immediately because they've got an AI tool which is built into Outlook. It looks at everything and it responds, or they just have to press go. Really, really cool, really useful tool. But if that's been designed maliciously, then that would be low visibility, no one knows they've used it, and really high impact, because that'll be every single email, every single document that person can read. How do we do this? So I mentioned before, we need to, when we're training our staff, we need to look at the why. It's not just okay to say, these are the things we need to do. We've got to have a culture for explaining why we're not allowed to do certain things, and also a culture for raising things up, saying, I think this is a really good platform, I think we should look into it. So we need to improve the culture for innovation. We want people to be innovative. We want people to do research on what tools would make their job better, make them better at their job, more productive. We need to have support and policy for that due diligence process. How does someone say, can someone have a look at that tool because it looks really good? Someone has a quick check of that tool, validates that it's not a huge risk, and says you can use it, but you can only use it for marketing material that's not currently under embargo. So it would be anything you do with it would be allowed to be posted today. Because then the worst case scenario, if that comes out, is they get the same information that they would be getting from your LinkedIn anyway. So that could be the first sort of rung of the ladder. You're allowed to do something. It might be you're allowed to do something, but you can't use any company data. You're just allowed to play with it, with random artificial data. Whatever that looks like. Classifying use cases. Where does it fall within that diagram from the last slide? What is the impact of the data you're planning to put into this tool? And then finally, process to increase that authorization. If you do try it and it's successful, how do we get that DPIA extended? How do we get that due diligence extended to ensure that we are happy with the level of risk with using that tool? And supporting all employees from the front line all the way up to senior leaders to use this process. because different AI products are more relevant to different people. So there's not going to be a one-stop shop. It's not going to be you can use Copilot and that's it. That might be the policy, but that's not necessarily the best, because Copilot might not be what the marketing team need. They might want something more hands-on, more graphic. We then need to look at all things with that DPIA. What if it does go wrong? So we've now mapped out what the impact is going to be, or could be. And we've mapped out what that could look like. But we need to do a bit more detail with business continuity planning. If something does happen and that data is released, have you practiced this scenario? So business continuity planning is not designed for AI, but it's absolutely relevant. It's useful for any sort of cyber incident to make sure we know what we would do if something bad happens. It's about having that playbook, having those contacts that we can use, and having that support that everyone knows about to make sure they can rectify a problem that arises. Big picture for small businesses. Small organisations face unique challenges compared to larger organisations. They don't have huge budgets. They don't have huge resources. They don't have huge numbers of staff. Most people can't have an AI specialist and a data protection specialist and a legal specialist and all of these other specialists if you're a team of two. It's not practical. It's not feasible. So another thing that came out earlier that I heard this morning was cyber champions. Having someone that's a champion of AI to be able to drive that forward. They might not be a specialist in that area, but someone is looking at AI and what it can be used for. Public-private sector collaboration is essential. NCSC, we want the NCSC to be talking more about AI. They are talking about AI. It is part of conversations that are going on. We want to be able to provide more resources to small businesses to help keep them informed and aware of upcoming threats and considerations. And as most things are with cyber, education and training is vital, both for your senior leaders to make sure they understand why they're creating policies and they're not creating it for the sake of the policy, but also for all of the staff. It very much is about why are we bringing in more policies, why are we bringing in more rules. It's about understanding, or the staff understanding, what that risk looks like when they use the wrong tool, what it could look like, what does bad look like. We often talk what does good look like as promoting best practice. But if we don't do that, what could happen? And in there we can look at potential legal ramifications of data breaches, talking about GDPR, but also demonstrations, showing tools that can be damaging and showing how easy, if they click on the wrong link and click on the wrong AI tool, how easy it would be for a malicious actor to be able to siphon data from that tool, emphasising the requirement for due diligence. Now, I can't see any sort of time, so I have no idea how we're getting on. But a couple of key takeaways. Shadow AI is a sign of demand, not just a risk. It is absolutely a risk. So, just is a really key word there. If people are using AI, it's because it helps them do their job better. And it's not something that we want to turn off. If people are using AI when you do that audit, it shows that there is huge demand for an authorization process to support that. It's not just something to be banned. Resilience means guiding innovation, not banning it. As I said before on that, I think the second slide, if you just have a blanket no, people are going to go and do it other ways, but in ways that are harder to be tracked. It's not going to be, there will be people that when you say no will take that and they'll accept it. And I think lots of this is around understanding what is and isn't AI. My glasses, for example, when you've got an impact assessment, it's very unlikely that you would have an impact assessment specifically about wearing Meta glasses into the office. So it's having an understanding of what people could be bringing into your environment that does have AI enabled, and being able to have an understanding of the technology rather than just thinking AI means ChatGPT, which is very much a thought from a couple of years ago. Actions to take forward. Understand where we are. Define a direction we want to move in. So how are we going to allow things? This will be unique for all organisations. And then finally, making sure everyone in the organisation understands what is the new direction of travel, how we can use technology, how we can't use technology, and why. Thank you very much for listening. I welcome any questions. I have absolutely no idea how I've done for time.
You finished quite early, actually, but that's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, you get
plenty of time for questions, so I can see a hand up already. Whilst I'm walking across, as I have the microphone, 2 quick questions from me. Do SMOs cover schools and charities? That's 2 questions. Schools and charities.
Do they?
As in, do you work with schools and do you work with charities?
Yes, we absolutely work with charities. So any organisation from 1 member of staff all the way up to 249, regardless of whether they're non-profit, charitable or otherwise. Schools we will support as a business rather than as a school. So all schools, most of them are multi-academy trusts now. They are businesses in their own right. They do have their own payroll. They have their own accounting. They have their website. They have emails. They are businesses. They do get a lot of support from DFE, and DFE are working quite hard on providing cyber provision. But if a school reaches out to us, we'll absolutely be there to help.
Great, thank you. I've lost where the question was, sorry.
Hello, thank you for the talk. Just a quick question, specifically around Copilot, because most organisations that have Active Directory will have Microsoft Cloud in some way, and Copilot has been forced down everyone's throats, depending on how you look at it. How do you actually go? Well, does your organisation have any recommendations for securing Copilot? Because as most as a service capabilities, I call them vulnerability as a service, because they're live services that if there's a 0-day there, it's going to affect everyone on that platform.
So Copilot is heavily advertised by Microsoft. It's really easy to get it up and running. I think when you set up a new Microsoft 365 tenant, it's there by default. You can disable it, and there are certain levels of trust you can provide Copilot. I know case study from shortly after it was released, there were problems. They turned it on, and whilst you didn't have access to someone else's storage and they didn't have access to your storage, Copilot saw everything, so you could just ask Copilot what have they got in their storage. That's really bad when you're asking what data the HR manager has on all the other people from various sort of PDRs. So there are concerns, but you can lock it down as much as possible within the background. We don't have specific advice for which products to use. Our advice very much is conduct the due diligence yourself and then apply your learnings from that.
Yeah, so there's no specific advice on what configuration you should be changing. I do security audits of Microsoft Cloud all the time, and the amount of default configurations that are set to be open to allow the users an easy experience. From my perspective, there's not enough guidance anywhere about these settings and where they are and what they actually do. It's only until like Dirk Jan and the rest of them who've actually done the research to prove the theory of what people have been saying for ages based on the documentation.
Yeah, you've got things like the CIS Level 1 audit, which will look through your Microsoft 365 configuration. Things like that will discuss the configuration for Copilot specifically and how it can be not configured to be wide open. I haven't dug into it as it is now, so I wouldn't know what the default configuration looks like, but you're absolutely right. Microsoft products, as a whole, when they come in, they need to be configured for security, especially in business environments.
Hi, great talk. Really, really like that, actually. One question I've got, it's probably a comment and a question, is the AI literacy. And interestingly, we kind of did a bit of a deep fake with my 6-year-old niece, and she fell for it, and we thought, actually, there needs to be something in schools. Just get your thoughts on what we need to be doing in and around schools, because it feels like the kids are just not going to know anything about deep fakes and AI and what we can use it for.
I completely agree. My background, actually, I used to be a secondary school computer science teacher. AI is being pushed into schools. Some schools are more receptive of it than others. that is at the moment primarily around how teachers use it to enhance their work-life balance. But the education around what AI is and what it isn't, we've still got this misnomer that AI means ChatGPT, when it's so much more than even an LLM that we interact with, a chatbot. More than that, there's so many other use cases of AI, and that needs to be taught from an early age, because otherwise we are bringing that misnomer straight into them that, oh, by the way, AI means you go onto chatgpt.com and you ask it a question and it gives you an answer. Whereas it's more integrated with everyday life than that.
Sorry. And speaking as a secondary school teacher myself of computer science currently, we do cover it in school, and certainly in my school. It's a big thing coming in, as you say, for staff, looking at using Copilot, particularly for our school, because we're a Microsoft-based school, looking at how we can utilize it for putting together PowerPoints, planning lessons, and that kind of thing. And also marking is a big area as well, trying to do workload reduction in terms of the children. So we start off helping students to understand a little bit about what AI actually is, what machine learning is, how models are developed and that kind of thing. What we're not maybe geared up so much around at the moment is, what the problems are with it. We do look at some of the issues, and higher up in school, we had a student a few years ago who did a cyber EBQ, so extended project qualification through SciSec, who actually looked at deepfakes. This was about 3 years ago, and when I sat with him and he interviewed somebody in the industry who was quite senior, I'm not going to give any more details because some of you might actually know the person I'm referring to, who told him he didn't think deepfakes were ever going to be more than a social media phenomenon for putting bunny ears on people's faces. By the end of the conversation with my student, he'd changed his mind.
Amazing.
Anyway, further questions from the floor. Sorry, that was me for a moment. Any further questions? Okay. In which case, Joseph, thank you very much indeed for your talk. Can I also just... Oh, yes, please, sorry.